talking about journeys, destinations, culture, adventure, gear, conservation, and all the things we haven't yet thought of. This episode is brought to you by Sunwear Solar Technology, a premium manufacturer of fixed and portable solar panels for overlanding vehicles and marine applications. Designed and manufactured in Germany, Sunwear panels are tested under the harshest environmental conditions to ensure rugged reliability for years to come. Trust Sunwear for your solar energy needs, no matter where your adventures take you. Check out their website at sunwear.solar. You'll find the link in the description below. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to the At Overland Europe podcast. Today, I'm honoured to be joined by one of the most imaginative and daring adventurers of our time, Dylan Wickrama. Dylan is known for his globe-spanning motorcycle odyssey, including a legendary crossing of the Darién Gap on a self-built raft powered by his bike. He then embraced a vanlife existence, travelling slowly and purposefully. And now he's preparing to embark on a new audacious journey, a Fiat Panda 4x4 world tour, beginning just weeks away. In our conversation, we'll explore the meaning of life, the mindset behind choosing small vehicles for big journeys, and the lessons learned from past extremes.
Growing up in Sri Lanka, do you hear there's a bee buzzing around here?
I can hear a bee buzzing around, yes.
Yeah, so I think I have to get rid of this guy, otherwise he will disrupt everything. So excuse me, please. Okay, yeah, just come on.
Nature.
Yeah. Okay, he's gone. Lucky.
Oh, brilliant. Well done. Dylan, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, Mike. Glad to be here.
So, it's been a while since we last had a face-to-face. I mean, like 6-7 years ago, at least.
At least, yeah.
And an awful lot has happened in your life since then. So, I think to begin with, maybe not everybody is aware of who Dylan Wickrama is and what you do. Let's wind back the clock to before you even really started traveling. And maybe you can give me some insight as to when did you feel the first call to adventure?
That's a pretty good question. I think it must have been when I was growing up in Sri Lanka. That's when I started dreaming about the world, traveling and, seeing the world with my own eyes. But of course, growing up in Sri Lanka, it's an island and the conditions were not that great for me as a traveler because Sri Lanka is a poor country. Growing up, we were faced with so many hardships because my father died when I was 7 years old. He was killed by a couple of robbers for his money, and I was growing up with 3 brothers. And all of a sudden, my father was a businessman. He had a shop in Colombo. We were quite well off when he was alive. But as soon as he died, we became poor overnight. It's just like, because my poor mother, she was a simple woman who had no education. I mean, just a secondary education, you just went to the normal school until she was 16 and then married by the time she was, I think, around 20 or so. So she didn't know anything about the business world. So when my father passed away, we were left with nothing. My father's partner, he didn't want to accommodate us in his business. So we were basically stranded, so my mother had to work hard, like she was working nearly every single day of the week in order to, make ends meet. So growing up in a situation like that, and to think about the world and travels and, adventure, there was very difficult. But of course, we did adventure in our own ways. We were not allowed to do a lot of things because Sri Lankan parents are very much overprotective. You're not allowed to go and have a swim in a river or in the ocean. So we couldn't climb a tree. But of course, we did all that, as soon as my mother was at home. So the only person who could tell my mother that we were up to no good was the neighbor. So my neighbor said a couple of times, a couple of times a week, I would say. But that was the adventure. But it just made me to a person I am. I always loved adventure, and later on when I moved into Europe, that gave me the opportunity to do things. I mean, finance is one of the biggest requirements when you want to travel.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people, a lot of Europeans, you tend to forget that how privileged you are. I mean, it's not only the money. There was also this other factor, like having a strong enough passport, like with a Sri Lankan passport. Forget it. I think, if you you can't even go to India without a visa. So getting a visa could be a big challenge, especially to European countries, America, Australia, and places like that. But of course, moving to Europe, gave me that possibility to travel the world and do my own adventures.
How did that then come about? Because you're saying basically you were not wealthy in Sri Lanka, and then to make the move to Europe, I mean, that's a costly event on its own.
Yes. Later on, my mother married an Englishman. He was in Sri Lanka. He was living in Sri Lanka for a while. So they got together, and that paved the way for me to come to Europe with him. First of all, I was in England, and then later on, I met a Swiss woman whom I got married to, and we moved to Switzerland. So this is how it all came about.
Did you also, when you moved then to, let's say, England, is that where you then maybe changed a passport or nationality?
Yes. Well, I would say no. I never had an English passport, although I could have acquired one. But I think it was I wasn't bothered about that in those days, because I was going back and back and forth to Sri Lanka and England. And my stepfather, he also didn't know what he wanted with his life. He was also one of those wanderers, eternal wanderers. Once he wanted to settle down in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and but anyway, once I got to Switzerland, that's when I decided to get the naturalization and to get a Swiss passport. That was a huge help in my travels.
Yeah. So when did the actual traveling begin for you? Because I suppose the trip which you're really well known for is your motorcycle adventure around the world.
Yes, I always loved motorcycles. Like if you talk to a person from Asia, motorcycle is not it's not like a sport thing. If you like Europeans, they would tend to ride motorcycles because that is their hobby. But to an Asian, it is a mode of transport. But to me, motorcycle was, it's a lifestyle. It was an adventure. So I remember taking my first trip. That was in 1996. I went to India and bought an Enfield Bullet and traveled around India for 6 months. That was my very first tour, if you like. That was, it wasn't like, overlanding in the sense I was I wasn't alone. I was with my wife at the time. So it was kind of, I was kind of getting to know the adventure world. I mean, I didn't know that that there's a community, an adventure-loving community who, regularly meet with each other. Like, if you talk about Horizons Unlimited, or, there are different types of motorcycle meetings and camper meetings and, such. But I always thought that I was the only one who was traveling around on a motorcycle in those days, even until the day I started my my world tour in 2010, and that lasted 3.5 years. I remember meeting a chap, a motorcyclist, at the Russian border. I was going into Russia, and then I had to do the formalities, and then this motorcyclist also came. He was also a traveler, and I started bragging about I had just started my journey, right? And then I was telling him about, I'm going to travel around the world, blah, blah, blah. And then I asked him, so how long have you been on the road? And he said, I've been traveling for 5 years now. I was trying to impress him, but of course, without knowing that there are people like that. But yeah.
Who was that? You remember?
No, I have no idea. I have no idea. There was in 2010. I don't even know what nationality he was. Because, as soon as he told me that he's been traveling for 5 years, I just stopped talking to him.
Out of your depth.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So you were traveling on a BMW, and you traveled all the way around the world. But one of the highlights of that trip, and we can talk about more about the trip in a minute, but one of the highlights was how you crossed or didn't cross the Darién Gap. You did it slightly differently to anybody else. Tell me about that. I just explained to you how naive I have been as I was traveling around the world. So I had been traveling for about 2.5 years by the time I got to Canada. And, I didn't carry road maps, and I didn't read guidebooks, and, I just wanted to see the world and discover the world with my own eyes, and, without following the footsteps of some other adventurer. I've always said, I want to be Magellan, or I want to be Marco Polo. So, that traveling like that gave you an incredible experiences. Just to give you an example, as a child, I have read about, so many different places, reading the magazines and photographs. I remember seeing this photograph in a magazine, which was about these massive, big redwood trees in California. I didn't even know it was a California or whatever. I remember there was this photograph of this tree, and a car was driving through this tree. There's like a kind of a tunnel carved into this tree. So I was traveling around the world, and then I landed someday in North California, and all of a sudden I was amongst these massive big trees. It's so hard for me to describe the happiness. Okay. The emotion.
The emotions. I couldn't stop crying.
Wow. Was that because of the achievement of being there, or just being amongst these unnaturally large trees, which I suppose must be a very powerful experience? Yeah,
it's because I think it wasn't because of the sizes of the trees. It was because it was so unreal. Because you had been dreaming to be in such places as a child. A child who was growing up without anything. I grew up so poor. Sometimes, we did not even have a single corn of rice in my home. And my brothers and I, we were crying sometimes because of hunger. To come out of such situation, many years later, and you are pursuing your dreams that's been following through life, and then you come to a place like the Sequoia forest, and that was just incredible. I mean, it just hit me. It hits me even right now, when I tell you this story. So you can understand how great the impact must have been when I first encountered that. So anyway, so I was traveling without knowing the world. I did not, like people do nowadays, when they travel, they would take a guidebook and they would read, go through it, and they would say, I want to go here, 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 and it explains to you how to get there, which bus to take, or, whatever. But I just traveled without knowing where I was going. And of course, I have to say honestly that trip has been a spiritual journey for me. Because a few years before I started the journey, I had been going through a rough time in my life, kind of depressions, and I was questioning about why we're here and all that. So it wasn't only, I wasn't just traveling to discover places; it was also to discover myself. So that gave me the opportunity to see places that I'd never read in books or never knew that they existed, and to see these places that gave me a kind of the feeling that I am an explorer, I am an adventurer. So I was in Canada 2.5 years after I started the journey, and I met a guy, another biker, accidentally on the road again, called Greg. And he told me that, he asked me where I was heading, and I said, I'm going to Ushuaia, direction Ushuaia. And then he said, you have to, before you get to Panama, you have to, book a boat. You have to find a sailboat. And I said, why? And then he told me about that there is a missing part of the road of Panamericana between Panama and Colombia. So that is the first time I got to know about that this road didn't continue all the way. I mean, I was under the impression, because everybody said the longest drivable or motorable road in the world is the Panamericana. It goes from Alaska down to Argentina, which I thought is a great lie, because that doesn't continue through Panama to Colombia. So that is the time I started thinking about a new adventure, because I got used to doing like things. I mean, I didn't consider it. Like I didn't want to become some kind of a special person or do a world record, or want to be the first person who wanted to, who built a raft in order to get to Colombia. None of that. I just simply wanted to experience something new, So when this guy told me that, there's a piece of road missing, I thought to myself, hey, why the heck you want to find a boat? I mean, finding a boat, he said, is not an easy job. If you have to go to this place, this city called Cologne, and Cologne is a dangerous place, he told me, because he had traveled, had done quite a bit of traveling himself, so he knew what he was talking about. Then I thought, if it's too dangerous to go and look for a boat there, you might as well build your own raft and try on your own. And that's exactly what I did.
Have you ever built a raft before?
Oh, no. I've never even, I don't think I had even rowed a boat on a river until that point.
So this really was a big step. Grief. So how did you go about it?
Yeah, building a raft or building your own boat, it's a big task. It's not something like you can just build it and then get going. I mean, you had to find out. I mean, I'm not a boat builder. You just asked me if I had built boats before. No, not at all. So I had to calculate how much buoyancy it needs to carry my motorcycle and what kind of wood or bamboo, what I need. So I was even contemplating getting these bottles, like Coca-Cola bottles, like 1.5 liter or 2 liter bottles, and make like 1,000 of them, and then construct a raft to get to Colombia. But then in the end, I came up with this idea to buy 10 oil drums, and then create the raft. It had to be also quite a stable thing because you're not talking about a journey on a river. It's the ocean.
No.
I'd never been on the ocean before. Probably that was my my advantage, because I didn't know how freaking dangerous it was.
I think sort of using the word naive here is underwhelming, isn't it? I mean, that's incredible.
No, anyway, I wanted adventure. And I was, yearning to do something very special. I love the ocean because, Sri Lanka is an island and I grew up quite close to the ocean. So I went swimming and, spent quite a lot of time in the ocean. Like, it was also a forbidden thing for us, for me and my brothers. So, but I loved the ocean, and I was, as a child, I remember reading this book as a favorite novel, a famous novel in Sri Lanka, called Madol Dua. The Madol Dua is written by one of the special persons in Sri Lanka. He wrote a novelist called Martin Wickramasinghe, and he tells a story about two boys who are just running away from home, and they get to this island. They didn't build their own raft, but they stole a canoe from someone, and they just went and started a new life on a abandoned island. I always wanted to do the same. So even I was pretty grown up by the time. In years, but not in my probably not in my character, because people when you grow up, you tend to see assess the dangers much more rigidly than children, right? But I always remained a child.
That's great. So you built your raft, and you actually used your bike to propel it as well, didn't you?
Yes, that's right. So this raft was, until I got to Panama, I didn't know what I was, how I would be building this raft. But one of the first things I did was to plan or to construct the raft and drive it forward with the motorcycle engine. So, in Arizona, when I got to Arizona, out of all places, in Arizona, I walked into a boat shop looking for a propeller. I explained to the guy. I didn't know what I didn't tell him what I was going to do. But I said, I'm looking for a propeller that was, and he asked me what kind of boat that I have. I said BMW GS 1150. So I found this relic hanging on a wall. So I he gave it to me reluctantly, but so on the road, every evening I remember in my tent trying to figure out how to build this raft. So when I got to Mexico, I went to some mechanics and, explained to them, what I'm intending, and they helped me. So I told them what to do. Like, I bought a second final drive. I don't know if you know the mechanics of a GS, BMW GS. They don't have a chain. It has a drive shaft. Yeah. So I bought the final drive, a second final drive, which I modified in order to extend a shaft from the, instead of the rear wheel, I would extend it like 2 meters until that shaft reached the water level. And then, I would put attach the propeller to it. And then, so I just, slowly, I had an idea what I would be doing in Panama. So yeah, it was a great time. It was such an exciting time.
I'm sure it was.
I wasn't concentrating on traveling. The only thing I had in my mind was, while I was, going through Central America towards Panama, only thing I wanted to do was to build this raft and, do an ocean adventure with a motorcycle.
It's certainly very different. God. So how big was the raft? Because obviously you're not on it for a day. It was for longer. So how big was it? What did you have to take with you? How did you plan to live on a raft?
So I had 10 oil drums. Like, I built a kind of a pontoon, a catamaran, if you would like to call it. On either side, you had, I lined up 5 oil drums, and then created a platform over it with steel pipes. I joined these two rows of barrels and then put a bamboo deck on it. So it had, according to my calculations, I could have carried like more than 1,000 kilos. So my motorcycle probably weighed like 300 kilos. And then I had like water. Of course, you had to carry fuel, because the biggest problem was nobody knew about what to expect. As I sailed along the, parallel to land towards Colombia. I mean, nowadays, if you go to Google Maps, you can just zoom in and, you'll see, every little detail, except for probably, some hidden places what some governments don't want you to see. But in those days, you had no chance. It was so, internet was not developed like today. So nobody knew what is out there. I met some sailors in Panama, a French guy and a Hungarian, and they helped me quite a bit. But even then, they said, "Look, we can't give you any information, and you have no idea if you will find cities, villages, in order to buy petrol." So I didn't even know how much petrol I should take. The journey would have been, if you went in a straight line towards Buenaventura, that the city with the next network of roads would have been like 800 kilometers. Well, so 750, 800 kilometers. But of course, I, as a motorcyclist, calculated the fuel consumption. Like, I can do like 100 kilometers, 5.5 liters. So I thought 150 liters was plenty. But of course, I was hoping that there would be, some settlements and I'll be able to find fuel. But it wasn't easy at all. So that's why I think this adventure became such a big adventure. That's why I was able to tell a unique story to the world about what I experienced, and I was lost.
How long did the trip take on the raft?
In the end, I was about 50 days on the ocean. Initially I thought
that's a long time.
Yeah, I planned like 2 weeks. 2 weeks would be plenty, I thought. Huh? But it was an exciting journey. One of the best things I have done in my life.
I'm almost speechless because so much could have gone wrong.
You know, I was someone who was lost already before that journey began. I was asking about, the meaning of life, the purpose of life. I was asking that question so often, and I was not a happy man. I thought, what's the good of living life until you are 80? As soon as you are born, it ends in disaster. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Yes. You've got to make the most of the time in between.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I did. That's exactly what I did. Because I think we people, when I say we people, we who live in this affluent societies in Europe, all we think about is security. Yeah. I think, you go to work 8 hours a day, or sometimes, I don't know, maybe 12 hours a day, and you're working you're really killing yourself in order to secure your future so that you can enjoy life after your retirement. I think most of the time we do that, right? So in order to enjoy life once you are 65, or I don't know, whatever the retirement age, basically we sacrifice today. And by the time you reach that age, you don't have much energy left to do anything you love doing. Yeah. And that's exactly what I didn't want. And that's why I asked myself that question, hey, what is the purpose of life? We work ourselves to death and without dying, we are just barely, staying alive, living life. We're barely living our lives in order to, secure the future. I think I was fortunate enough to come from a country like Sri Lanka. I know, Europeans, they like to do adventure. They call it adventure, do something crazy. If you live in Sri Lanka, every day is an adventure. It doesn't matter what you do, it is an adventure. Things are becoming better and better, as a country progress. You are working your way towards an affluent society, things becoming easier and easier. But me growing up in Sri Lanka showed me or helped me to look at life in a very different way to how the Europeans see life. So for me to do an adventure like that on the ocean was nothing but help me why I live, there are so many things that we don't know. Once I got going on that raft journey, only I realized what I didn't know, how these people in Panama, in the jungle, how they live, so completely away from the civilization, in brackets. And these people, they just live, they without really, planning life like we do. Like danger to them is nothing. How these fishermen, they, in the rainy season, how they have to go into the ocean and catch fish. If they don't do that, they can't live, but they still do it. They're not saying, okay, hey, we're going to pack up. Let's go into a city and live a comfortable life. No, they don't want to, trade their life in the jungle with us. I asked this question a couple of times, and locals in that I met in these villages, and they gave me the impression that they are very happy. But of course, I think we also have this this saying, the grass is greener on the other side. Yeah, you always think that over there it's always better than here. Probably there's that factor to it.
It's also a case of living in the moment, because we never really know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
So what you've been doing, what you've been practicing, is living in the moment, as opposed to sacrificing today for tomorrow, which you don't really know anything about. Mm-hmm. I certainly like the idea of the concept, because, as you say, the people who live outside of urban infrastructure or in the jungle, they take each day as it comes. The sun goes up and the sun sets, and they live the day because it's there, as opposed to, as you said a moment ago, working from, let's say, your early 20s until you're over 60, saving for when you will have time. But if you haven't got the energy to enjoy the time, then you've sacrificed an awful lot along the way.
Absolutely. I think that this journey gave me a different option. Before I ventured out on this world tour with the motorbike, I was very much of an ordinary European. I know it's a bit funny if I say I'm a European. I mean, I've been living in Switzerland for more than 25 years. So in a way, I have learned your ways. I have, of course, my identity, my roots are in Sri Lanka, but still, you get conditioned by your environment, which you're living, your life. So I became another European, and I wanted to, have a successful business, and just wanted to, earn money and fancy cars or all that. Those kind of dreams I had. And lucky me that I went through, I started asking these questions about the purpose of life. That prompted me to go on this journey. And of course, that gave me the opportunity to see that there is a life, or you can have a life and enjoy life, even if you don't plan it so fanatically. Paying your insurances, and you're just living in order to keep yourself comfortable, and no danger can happen to you. But
keeping yourself safe.
Yes, yeah. But in the end, I started asking myself this question. One day, I should ask it like this: is there a better way to die? What is the best way to die? Is it dying slowly in an old people's home? Yeah. Or in an accident? You're met with an accident and then you die, or you die. I don't know. You can't really say what is the best way, right? Well, of course, if you are in good health, that is the most precious gift that you can have. But I have asked this question so many times. Hey, should I do this? Should I not do it? I mean, like if a guy wants to climb one of these crazy mountains, and that if that is his passion, it is so deadly, but he still keep doing it. I think we ought to let that person have his joy. But of course, in our society, no, you can't think of dying. You have to just, preserve life at all costs. Even if you have to give up on your dreams, right? And this is not my concept of life after having seen the world and seen, having experienced all the things that I have experienced, especially on that raft journey. And I also learned to value life much, much more. And that, I went through a couple of storms on that journey, on the ocean. And this is terrifying to experience a storm. But of course, when you survive such thing, it gives you an incredible feeling about life. And you're so grateful for life. And I had that, I remember going through my second storm in Panama on my raft. And it made me realize the best gift that we have is life. That's it. The best gift that you can ever have is life. Not money, nothing, just being alive. But of course, being alive alone is nothing, right? If you don't do something with your life. Yeah. So I am living my life according to how I think it's good, or, to please myself with the things that I love doing. So yeah.
Quite a journey in life, not just on wheels, but you've gone through a hell of a journey to get to where you are today. You've obviously had some very eye-opening experiences along the way as well.
Oh yeah.
Rolling forwards a little bit from the motorcycle trip, because you then moved into what's better known today as van life, haven't you, really? And you've continued your journey as well.
Yes. So in 2014, I finished my motorcycle tour only because I ran out of money. So I came back to Switzerland, and then I was asked if I could do a talk about my motorcycle journey, which I accepted, and I did. And thereafter, I kept getting invitations to do talks. So in the end, we were traveling so much through Europe, my wife and I. We decided, hey, why do we have a flat? We might as well live on the road, which we were enjoying. And that's exactly what we did. I mean, when we had that idea, I remember it was one evening we started talking about it. And on the same day, we wrote a letter of cancellation to our landlord. And 3 months later, we were living in a van, which was not at all a camper at the time. So basically, we improvised and started living life, traveling places. Basically, we started living, from the van, selling books. We wrote 2 books, my wife and I. One about my motorcycle journey, the raft journey, and also another book about, a van life, all the experiences we made while living a mobile life. So, that gave us the opportunity to travel and live a very different life, which we have been continuing for 9 years, I think. Yeah, 2016, we gave up our flat. So ever since then, of course, when the pandemic hit, things got disrupted. The plans we had and things that we were doing. That was very much the time when I brought out my film, When the Road Ends. Of course, that was also an accident. I mean, I never planned to make a film. I never planned to, do talks. And I never, the first time I knew that there's this adventure community who regularly meet, and there are like meetups. That was 2.5 years after me starting my journey in Canada. I was talking to you about, I was telling you about this guy, Greg, that I met, who told me about the Darién Gap. He told me, hey, Dylan, there's a motorcycle meeting taking place. I said, what is a motorcycle meeting? I really didn't know what a motorcycle meeting was. And he said, I think it was Horizons Unlimited. They had their, in North, it was in Canada, they had this meeting. And he took me along. And So I went along, and they wanted to sell me a ticket. He said, "Yeah, you have to buy a ticket." When we arrived there, it would have cost me like $60 or so, or 80, I can't remember. And I said, no way, I'm going to pay money for this. And I just wanted to get going, I wanted to hit the road again. And then the founders of Horizons Unlimited, Susan and Grant, Susan said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm traveling around the world." And then she said, "Can you do a talk?" And I said, "What is a talk?" And and then she explained to me, "Yeah, do you have some photos?" I said, "Yes, I have photos." "Yeah, then you put your photos together and just talk." And she said, "Show me your photos." So she saw my photos, and she arranged some photos together, and then I did a talk. That was my very first talk at an event.
An introduction to speaking. Wow.
Yes, exactly. So, all these things that happened later on, I wrote a book, I, made a film. So the film was also one of those stories. When I was invited to do a talk in Austria, and then I showed some videos, and this guy, he told me, "Hey, you have to make a movie with this." I said, I don't know. I never made a movie. How do you make a movie? And then he said, I have some friends, filmmakers. Maybe we can come together and do something. So we got together, and they looked at my video footage, and they said, yeah, probably we can make a 1 hour documentary. And they said, it will cost you like 100,000 euros. And I was like, yeah, hey, if I had 100,000 euros, I would be traveling around the world again.
Yeah. So,
but anyhow, that paved the way for me to make my own film. I have shown that film in few times in cinemas even.
An incredible story, because you I wouldn't say you've stumbled along, but your journey has been very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's, as you say, you didn't research it, you didn't plan it, and everything which has followed
improvised.
Yes, improvise is a good one. But you've because of the way you were traveling in your openness and listening and learning as you go along, you've been guided into doing things which, you didn't know existed and therefore had never planned to do, whether it be speaking or creating a film.
Yeah. Life is about making your own experiences, Mike. It's not about, nowadays we have spoiled the world. Look at this Instagram and all the social media, right? Somebody goes and takes a nice photo and posts it, and everybody wants to go there and see that. But that is not the most beautiful place in the world. And there are millions of places that are just as nice, right? But we've been geared, or we've been conditioned to follow, swim with the crowd.
Flow.
Yeah, go with the flow. And that is, I'm doing exactly the opposite. And by doing exactly the opposite, I would say I am a very, very happy person, within. I don't need to do something. I mean, nowadays people do things in order to show off, to say, hey, I did that, I did this, without really, finding the meaning why you're doing it. Right?
It's almost as if people are doing it for other people.
Absolutely. I read an article recently which said, somebody did a survey, and the question was, would you be traveling to wherever you want to go if you couldn't post, if you couldn't post it on Instagram or Facebook? And I think it was like 30% of the people said, the young people, they wouldn't be traveling at all if they couldn't post about their experiences. So, basically what we are doing nowadays is we are not traveling in order to please yourself. You are doing it for somebody else so that you can brag about it. You can just, and that's, I'm also using social media, but never am I trying to impress people, if then to inspire, not to impress, but to inspire. Because there are an awful lot of people out there who don't have the guts to do things. They have their dreams and they want to achieve, do things, travel mostly, but they think the world is a wicked place. It's a too dangerous place for traveling. But the experiences I made while traveling, I have been to some dangerous places. I've been to places that had made me quite uncomfortable, like South Sudan, for instance. But I would say 99% of the time, you are with good people, with good intentions, people who want to share humanity with you rather than try to take advantage of you. But of course, all these news headlines make us afraid, or the pressure from the society. Oh no, you should not go there because that's a bad place. Not really. The world is a wonderful place, and I still believe if people can be open to each other, traveling helps you to be that. This world would become a much better place,
I think what you were saying, is your social media is about inspiring people to get up and do something similar, and to not even to do something similar, but to just start living their dreams.
Absolutely. I'm not saying, hey, build your raft.
No, not at all. But I think that the rafting is also part of saying there are 101 reasons why you shouldn't do something. But why do you have to listen to the 101 reasons? Just go out and do it.
Yeah. But having said that, if you are scared, and if you want me to share some other stories, the most dangerous experience I made while traveling on German Autobahn. We had a collision with a guy driving on the wrong side. He was head-on collision. He wanted to kill himself. There you go. So you don't need to go on a raft on the Pacific to discover that the world is a dangerous place. It can be.
Shit happens on your own doorstep.
Exactly.
I think there's two sides to that. Is that one, you don't have to travel long distances to, as you say, to get into a scary situation. But also, for anybody considering starting in traveling the world or whatever, you don't actually have to travel a long way to see something new. Start small and then expand your radius as you get better at it.
I wouldn't even encourage people to travel. It's basically you do what you like doing. I have a nephew, Martina's nephew. Can you say nephew-in-law?
I think it's just a nephew because you're the uncle.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not a blood relation. That's what I was trying to say. So a young man, he doesn't like traveling. He wants to stay in his own village, and he is extremely happy. He's a young man of, I think, how old is he? Like 22. Most of his free time he spends helping farmers, drive their tractors or, whatever. I don't think he even gets paid for that. I mean, he's a mechanic, by the way. He has his regular job. And outside of that, every hour he spends doing what he likes doing. So, I say, hey, you don't need to travel. If it makes you happy to stay at home, do just that. Just, spend your time in the garden, doing gardening. That's exactly what you should be doing. I mean, we don't need to put pressure on people and say, hey, climbing mountains, that is the most fantastic thing you can do. No, you don't. There is no such thing as the most, the best hobby or whatever. It's about what you want to do. But there are a lot of people who are dreaming about things. Hey, I want to travel, but they don't make that first step because they are scared. about, whatever that might come and, against them, or they might get killed, or, because of terrorism or whatever. So stop doing that. If you have a dream, just pursue that. Just try to achieve that. It doesn't matter how. And if you have a dream, if that is your dream, if you want to achieve it, you will find a way to do it. Achieving your dream, it has nothing to do with having money or having the right passport. If you want it, you can get all that,
You just have to take the first step.
Exactly.
Yeah. Get yourself in gear and begin. On that note, your journey and your traveling, is by no means ended, because, tell me if I'm wrong, but you're now planning a new journey, and having upgraded, in inverted commas, from a motorcycle to a van, you're now downsizing again, aren't you?
Yes.
You're moving into a Panda 4x4.
Yes. In my life, I have owned a few cars, amongst them some nice sport cars.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought this Fiat Panda 4x4 like 2 years ago. And I had never been happier with a car like I am with this vehicle. Really, it's I'm so looking forward to it. I think since a few days we've been posting about the preparation for our next journey. We are trying to modify things, that thing has to accommodate me, my wife, and our little dog. So, and my wife is not a small woman. When I say small, she's not. She's very tall.
Yeah.
So living in a Fiat Panda, traveling could be challenging, you might say. But I have already done some modifications where you could sleep in it comfortably. And so we are very much looking forward to our journey, which is, when maybe in like 2 weeks' time, we'll be starting towards North Africa.
And you're actually going to be living inside the vehicle? You didn't think about putting a rooftop tent on it or something?
Initially, yes. Initially I wanted to do our next journey with a Ural motorcycle, with a sidecar. Mm-hmm. So I was pretty looking forward to that. But then I saw a motorcycle which was for sale quite close by to where we are right now. And then a week later, that motorcycle was sold. So I couldn't buy it. And in that moment, Martina told me, Dylan, I didn't tell you, traveling on a motorcycle will not make me happy. That was a kind of a shock to me. I was very disappointed. But but then the next sentence was from Martina, what do you think about a Panda 4x4? I thought, one wheel more? What the heck? Let's go for it.
Yeah.
So half an hour later, we became the owners of this Panda, because I started searching for a Fiat Panda, which was for sale. I found one for sale like 10 kilometers from us. We went there and bought it for, what did I pay? 1,000 Swiss francs.
Wow.
And so we have been very much looking forward to that. But of course, we couldn't start that journey that quickly, because it has been 2 years since we have that vehicle. When during the pandemic, we also started a workshop in Switzerland. We are currently producing composting toilets for camper vans. It was also one of those.
Oh, wow.
The opportunity gives you things. In the pandemic time, we couldn't really travel, so I wanted to invest my time in a toilet that didn't exist, because it's all crappy things. You couldn't really use them. There was something always. So I invented my own camper toilet, and it became so good. So we are producing them and selling them. So currently, that's how we are earning our living. So we have to do some organizing, that the business will be continuing while we are traveling.
When you're away.
Yeah, exactly. So, but anyhow, we are just about to start our next journey.
That's
but of
incredible.
course, we would be coming back, whenever it is required. We have, when our stocks are finished, we would come back, produce for a couple of weeks or months, and then go back to where we left our Panda. So yeah,
I think there's two sides to this. Is that you're an experienced traveler, and this may be just me thinking incorrectly, but as time goes on, many people tend to say, right, started small, get bigger and bigger. The vehicle becomes more comfortable or just generally better equipped. You've gone from your incredible motorcycle and rafting journey into van life, and now you've bought a vehicle which cost you 1,000 francs. You are building it to live inside, and you're going off traveling again. And I think that's a huge part of what you were saying earlier on about you want to inspire people. And this is genuinely showing that you can go out and do things without spending 20, 30, 100,000 euros on a traveling vehicle. But you can start small and still, I think that's really inspiring.
We think it is the material, things that give us happiness. I think I'm very fortunate to have Martina, a woman like Martina. When I met her in 2011, I was on my on the way around the world with my motorcycle, and I had a breakdown in India, and she happened to be in that little village, and I got to know her. And she hasn't been. She isn't an adventurer. She's not sporty. Yeah. She is a very calm, kind, thoughtful person. But over the years, I really got to know her. She is as adventurous as me, because to put up with a man like me, she would, if I bring up an idea and say, let's do this, and she would say yes. So I'm very, very fortunate with to find a woman like that. And as I said, with this Panda idea, she came up with that herself. It wasn't my idea. Of course, I wanted to go with a motorcycle, but she said, "Oh no, that's too adventurous. But let's do adventure, but still something very different to a camper van." But we have a very good understanding. We have a very strong relationship. There's this thing called love between us that is very special. There isn't a day that goes by where we don't say to each other, "We love you." I love you. So for me, it doesn't matter where I hear these words, in a camper van or in a one of those fancy vehicles, or in Panda. That makes me happy, genuinely happy. So it doesn't matter where we stop our vehicle, whether it is a little bit, could be uncomfortable. But of course, I got these little creature comforts built into our camper, Panda. I think maybe we can talk about it later on. I don't know how long you want to continue with this podcast.
I think the Panda conversion and what you're doing with it is a separate story, because there is so much around not just the idea of traveling in the Panda, but how you're putting it together. So I think that we'll leave that one as a separate topic.
Yes, I think that's a good idea. So we can fill up another podcast with it.
Absolutely. Because I think what the idea for me right now is that you're going to be disappearing in a couple of weeks' time, is that we pick up on a podcast when you're actually traveling as well.
Yeah, sure.
Because then you can share some of your ongoing experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But let's just stay with where we are right now. You're preparing for the trip. and it's going to be in a wonderful vehicle, Panda 4x4. And you're pointing the bonnet, if you like, towards Africa to begin with, North Africa. So how long is this journey going to continue for? What is the sort of the big plan, the bigger picture?
Okay, we are heading towards Tunisia. As well, this is a kind, I don't know if I should call it a test ride. But anyhow, we have to be in Sri Lanka on the 15th of January because, I'm doing a guided motorcycle tour in Sri Lanka every year. So, so it's a 19-day trip. I'm taking, whoever wants to join me. I think this time we have like 10 people. Normally it's like 10 people. I don't take more people. So, I have to be in Sri Lanka for that. So that means we are heading towards Tunisia for a couple of months and then get back and then fly off to Sri Lanka and then come back. I don't know if you have like a lot of orders for our composting toilet. We might have to spend a couple of weeks longer here and in the workshop and produce some and then get going. I think generally we are thinking of heading towards Saudi Arabia. That's a country that I have not traveled so far, but thereafter, the world is a massive, big place. There are so many things to be discovered, and I generally don't read guidebooks, as I mentioned earlier. So, people interest me. So, getting to know people, their way of life, and cultures, and once you're moving on the road, every day is it's a school, right? You can as a
absolutely
you can learn a new lesson each time, and that's how I want to become rich
with wisdom.
I don't know if that makes me wise, but but it makes me happy.
It's life-wise, though, isn't it? It doesn't have to be wisdom in the sense of knowing everything. It's knowing life and knowing how to reap the benefit from it.
Yes.
Wow. We've actually covered some interesting topics today because it's a lot of insight into how you look at the world and life. Some of your adventures along the way and the fact that you're now just preparing for your next adventure with Martina in the Panda. It's almost like we've sort of come to a natural break, because I think if we then say that we talk about the car and how you're developing it and what you're putting into it, etc., with the next podcast, then that would give us an opportunity here to sort of draw this one to a close and go away and prepare for the next one, which I'm looking forward to as well. But right now, today's discussion has certainly opened my eyes as to how you see life and the world. And thank you for that. That's a reward.
Nice to hear that, Mike. Nice to hear that.
Right now, you've got a film on YouTube in various installments. You've got your books. I'll put the details of that in the description below so that people can actually then, read about you, find out more about what you've been doing and how you've got to where you are today.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dylan, for being here and talking to me. And I look forward to our next installment in a couple of weeks' time.
Hopefully from Tunisia.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dylan.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Safe travels.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the At Overland Europe podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and download our app for more adventures and exclusive content. Remember, you can find our guest social media and websites linked in the description below. Until next time, safe travels.